Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Soul Canvas podcast. This is your place to be possible. You know, in each episode, we tell stories about what's possible for your life when you say yes. When you say yes to healing, to new beginnings, to joy. And today we're going to talk about what's possible for you when you say yes to opportunity. My guest today is Adrienne Venable, my lovely, lovely, lovely friend. Adrienne is the founder of Social Dragonflies, which is a social media and brand strategy company. But let me tell you, Miss Adrienne is a vibe. She is an aesthetic. She is a look. She is a feel, and she will help your business have all of that and more. I'll make sure in our show notes, as always, that you have all of the connection points for Miss Adrienne. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you for asking. Always an honor to chat with you. You know, the answer for
Absolutely.
you is always yes.
I love that. I love that. And you know, I'm really not kidding about you being the vibe, the aesthetic. You know, when I met you, what's it been, probably 3 or 4 years ago when I first got to St. Pete, I was like, this woman is like, and I think we were kayaking. There wasn't even any makeup involved. There was just the energy, the like.
But I think the first time we really met was at your entrepreneur social club. You were sitting next to me and you had ridden your bike, and I think you were on your way to sell the bike, or it was getting its last rides before
my
you were done.
motorcycle. Yes. Oh my gosh, I thought I had met you before that on the water with Christine.
That's possible, but the first time I really remember is us sitting next to you, and I just thought you were the coolest I was like, who is this? I was like,
well, right back at you, sister.
You were so neat.
Right back at you. So when I reached out to you about the podcast and about saying yes to opportunity and what's happened for your life, were you always the yes to opportunity girl? Like, yeah, I'm down. Let's go forward.
I think so. I think I definitely was. I went to the beat of a different drummer for sure. And I always tease that I think my dad's like, where did you come from? And, you know, I come from a pretty traditional family. I mean, even beyond my immediate family, like everyone went to college, a lot of lawyers, a lot of professionals, everyone. I would say, I don't have like any corporate people in my world. Everybody was an entrepreneur, but in a very traditional, open a law firm kind of way. And I remember just knowing that that wasn't going to be my way, but I didn't know what it was going to be. I was so confused. And then I got very intoxicated by the restaurant industry, and I started waiting tables in college just for fun. But then I got really into it when I moved to LA, and the restaurant industry was just so much more elevated, and the money was really good, and it was what I was doing. I went out to LA to do hair and makeup. I don't know if you knew that. So that was kind of,
I did not know that.
What I was aspiring to be was to do hair and makeup, and I did it. I worked some movie shoots and some commercial shoots and did some different things. And I liked it, but it wasn't a love. And I think I always had in the background, and this is in early 2000s, when being a digital nomad was not a thing, really.
Not a thing. No, not at all.
But I was like, I don't want to be tied down. So the idea of building up a business in a salon didn't make any sense to me, because I was like, that's going to tie me down. It's going to tie me down. Yeah. So I continued to like kind of try to follow my nose, but it was always with the mindset of like, I want to be free. I don't want to be going anywhere, or I want to go everywhere.
So you've had this guiding principle behind the yes to opportunity.
And it was just, I remember when I moved to LA, and again, that was, nobody was really doing that. It was like a lot of people, I was graduating from college. A lot of people were, settling down, getting the job. And I remember the description for me of what was happening in Tampa at that time was, how little can I do? How much will you pay me? When is happy hour on Friday? And it just felt very meh, and then not everybody, but a lot of people were, looking towards moving to the burbs and leasing a car and having kids. And I was just like, ooh, like, I mean, all of that just sounded like the worst idea ever. And so I decided to move to LA, and this is like, internet was very young. We didn't have cell phones. And I just thought, oh, I can always move back. It was just, I'm
Yeah.
like, what, there's nothing. And so I moved without a home because the home that I had rented fell through in the last moment.
Mm,
And so I went out, packed up a U-Haul, put my car on the back of it, convinced a friend to drive, and we did it. And it was just like, and I slept on a friend's couch and got a ticket the moment I met to LA because I had, the truck,
yeah.
the U-Haul wasn't designated for the street. It's like, how would I know that? I remember like
How would you know
typing
that?
typing my letter, like, how would I know that I just moved here? They're like, you did not prove you didn't do it. I go, I wasn't saying I didn't do it. I just was like, give a girl a break.
That's great. Well, was it hard being in LA once you got there and you got settled and got to your dream at the time? Was it hard?
No, I was blessed. I found a really great apartment. I was in, Beverly Hills adjacent, and I didn't, all that language was so new. LA's got its own like way of saying things,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not I-405, it's the 405,
Yeah.
and it's so funny. I could never say the 75, but it's like you have to say the 405. And I just remember I could remember walking to my car and I could see the Hollywood sign in the distance. And I was just like pinching myself. I couldn't believe this was my life. I couldn't believe that I was waiting on Leonardo DiCaprio during the height of Titanic, that Matt Damon came in right after he won his Oscar. It was just, I couldn't believe like I had created this,
Yeah.
and I met some really good friends right away. And it was just great. It was
Yeah.
a really exciting time. I look back and it's like, oh my gosh, my rent was, I remember it was like 750, I think, for 2 bedroom. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, it
Wow.
was like, it wasn't bad. We had a 2-1. I moved with a friend from college, and we were just young kids that, didn't know what we were getting into. And I was just, enthralled by it all. I mean, things were, LA's bigger, and, we had a Thomas guide to get around, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
say that, LA is a grid, so it's pretty user friendly.
It is.
And I just thought, I just loved how open minded people were, and how it was very creative and it was very interesting, and just it wasn't surrounded by people looking to be married and have kids and be traditional. Everybody was kind of hustling and had extra jobs, and and I just remember the open mindedness of it all. And I always take it really, people have so much judgment about Los Angeles, and I'm always like, no, that's not how it is, and it's very easy
Mm,
to get it confused. And I could see how you get it confused, but I just feel like you can talk bad about, I can talk bad about my mom, you cannot. So I will
yeah.
tell
Yeah.
you what's
Yeah.
wrong with LA. But if you haven't lived there, I would literally have people that had visited for one time try to tell me how it was. I'm like, but
I
I
feel that way
actually
about New York City.
yes.
If you haven't really spent any time there and your highlight was Bubba Gump shrimp in Times Square,
Oh
we're
my
not
God.
we're not having that conversation, right? Like that's not the city. That's not it. That is not it.
100%. And I think New York does, it gets misunderstood as well. The only thing with New York is because it's a little bit more contained, it's hard to get into completely the wrong area. Whereas in LA, you can really get into, like, you could
Sure.
go to to Chinese theater, or I mean, you could just really start doing stuff that sounds like the touristy things to do.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
just feel like, oh, that's like, no, you don't want to do
We don't do that.
that.
So what brought you back to Florida?
The crash. So I was a sommelier, was my last job, and like, are you kidding me? I got paid to drink wine, and it was magic. And then I was lucky to work for a really talented sommelier at a job. So she was passed the torch on to me, and you would have laughed because I'm sure you saw this in New York too, but LA was famous for having idiots open restaurants, right? And I mean, we still see it here, but just, oh, this is my place, and they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
Um, and so he built this restaurant, like, with everybody just blowing so much sunshine up his butt. And literally he opened, and the crash of '08 happened like really shortly thereafter. And I went from, it was very palatable because I was selling $150 bottles of wine all night. And then all of a sudden it was 75, which is still not a bad bottle of wine, but I mean, that's half. So
Yeah, yeah,
everything was
yeah.
half. So then I got fired from that job, or let go right after New Year's. And it wasn't fired. It was just, we can't afford to breathe right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I was in an 8-year relationship that, I loved him very, very much, but we had a lot of financial turmoil and just, oh, I mean, I always say like money was kind of was what broke us up, because he just kind of could not get his stuff together. And I loved him very much, but after 8 years, I was just like, I had to put the oxygen mask on myself. And so I came home to Tampa. It was Gasparilla and Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Were the same like week, and I came home for that, and I had such a good time. And I was like, I love LA so much, but I will say I'm not having as much fun there as I am here. And
Yeah.
life is a lot easier here, especially when things were getting so tight. LA was really last to feel the effects of the recession and everything. We were kind of in a bubble
Bit of
for a
a
really
bubble.
long
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So I knew that like Florida was doing really badly, but we were doing great. And then we popped that crash of '08 really popped us.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
we went madly off the cliff. So I started deciding to move back with kind of just the idea of, get of making my life more simple and small, and, living with my parents. And I broke up with my boyfriend, which it was such an interesting thing, because I didn't break up, like my soul did it. And it was
Yeah.
really wild, because I'll never forget, like in that moment, I said, I think I'm done. And I will never forget, Jenna, that my shoulders like raised up. And I was just like, who said that? What was that? It was so profound.
Mm.
And um, it was so sad, but it also felt right. And um, so shortly
Shoulders,
thereafter,
shoulders raised up as in like from
relief, like a
yeah,
weight was lifted,
I
and it
see
was
what you
just almost like helium balloons, like raised up, and it was just, and
mm.
it just, and I share that because in that moment I shouldn't have felt that. Like it should have been so chaotic that I shouldn't have noticed
Sure.
anything, because again, I was like, who said that? Like I was not there to break up with him.
Right.
And I moved home, and um it was not that was the hardest part of my life. I would say like I was blonde Humpty Dumpty. I came home with 7
Mm.
animals. I had 5 cats and 2 dogs, and my dad took us all in.
Aw.
And I obviously, jobs were hard to get, everything was, hard to get, but and then I was just behaving really badly. I was definitely like drinking and partying and just numbing out. And I had a very, I mean, pathetic, just really like
Mm.
not checking the mail, not answering phone calls, just doing the least,
Dark time.
and very, very dark time. And, I always say like the dogs really helped me, because there's times that without her to get me up, I wasn't going to get up, so that
Mm.
was really, really heavy. I
Yeah.
slept in my car quite a few nights, because I would get so drunk at the bar. And when I got into the car, realizing I could not be driving, and I would wake up fully clothed in the morning, I mean, just
Yeah.
dark.
What was the turning point then from that time to what came next?
So interestingly enough, I got into a network marketing company. And, there's a lot of negativity about network marketing, and we can, have that conversation. But what network marketing did for me was it surrounded me with really positive people who were doing
It's
like really
community. Yeah.
awesome things. And, it wasn't about partying. It wasn't about anything. It was about, people doing self-development. A lot of people that in there had their own retreats, had their own products that they were doing. And so they were magnetic, and I wanted some of what they had. So
Sure.
in 2015, I had a breakup with a sociopathic narcissist. I
Those
didn't,
are fun.
yeah, super fun. I didn't really know what that was, even though I was a psychology major, but somehow I didn't connect what was happening. I didn't really know that about love bombing and how that all worked and everything. Now I'm very clear, and I've learned a lot, and I've helped a lot of women, through that. But
Hmm.
he left, we went to therapy together. He went to therapy under the pretense of like wanting to work on us. He actually just went to therapy to like let her know what a piece of shit I was,
Oh,
basically.
nice.
Yeah, it was really lovely. And then she goes, you haven't said one nice thing about her. And he said, are we done? And he walked out and I never saw him again. Best blessing ever. But I
Mhm.
mean, it was just the craziest thing because we lived together. But at the time he was staying away to let me work on myself because I was such a mess. And I really was, at that time, I was, I was a lot better than I had been. So I got into the self-development in 2016. I went to like retreats and workshops and just really
Mm.
dove in and really felt the change. And from there, the network marketing company was what taught me how to use social media to do sales.
Oh, that's
So
great.
to build an audience and everything and to kind of and brand myself and all this stuff. So one of the retreats I went to in Tulum, the next year she asked if I would do her social media in exchange for going to the next retreat. And I was like, duh, sign me
Yeah,
up, of
duh.
course. And so I did it. I didn't know what I was doing. I was stealing pictures off Pinterest. I was just 100% winging it. But it was just, I remember going through the tree and going, oh, I really like that. And it was so funny. You'll laugh too. I was like, I'm going to need to know like click funnels. I don't even know to this day really what click funnels are, but somehow I had it in my head that I was going to need to know them. And so she goes, you can just do social media. And social media was such a baby then. It was,
Sure.
2017 and it was very young. And, at the time, social media was still being really used for personal stuff. It wasn't the juggernaut of ads and
And let's
everything.
not
Yeah.
forget, that was only 7 years ago. Like the shift in such a short period of time in terms of
Right.
influence those channels have with all of us now, crazy to me. Crazy.
Yeah. And I think it's, I always, because I meet a lot of entrepreneurs that hate it. And I'm like, but what would you do if I took it away? Like, take it away. What are you going to get a bus bench, some yellow pages,
All
a
right.
radio ad? I mean, it really is the best way to really find your audience, get to them quickly, build like, know, and trust, like fast and free. I mean, because you can do it yourself.
Right.
And so I think making friends with that platform, I could go on all day about why. I mean, I have always loved it, but how powerful the platform is for you building a brand and connecting and everything. And if I took it away from you, you really would be lost.
Was that when you started Social Dragonflies?
Yep. So 2017, I think the first name of Social Dragonflies was Dragonfly Design. And this girl goes, are you designing anything? I'm like, nope. I just like alliteration.
I feel you.
And so then she came up, which it's so funny. The name Social Dragonflies to me is so obvious now that I know it. But at the time, I was just like, I don't know, Dragonfly. I always love alliteration. So I was like, nope. And so this girl gave me Social Dragonflies. And then she gave me my first branding and I was a baby at branding, I didn't really know, but I remember, we did the mood board and did the thing. And she sends it back and it looked like something that you would decorate like a 12-year-old's bedroom with. It was just like
Mm,
pastels and watercolors and it was pretty, but it was not sophisticated. It was, and I still
not
have it.
you. I
I
mean,
know, not at all. I was just like, and it was like, oh, I don't like this. And it's so far off the mark. How did you even get here? And then I found somebody just again the power of social media randomly and she did my brand and I don't think I paid that much for it and it's like I love she nailed it so
yeah.
really really funny even the and it's funny because like I want to do a brand refresh but it's this whole like I don't hate what I got I really like
No.
it I mean so I'm like I don't know what to do because it's like I do want to do a brand refresh just for fun but I'm like oh but I really do like what I have so we'll see what comes of that.
Well, one of the things that I admire and love so much about you is that you are you're always in this mood of or this energy of how can I next or how can I best help people, right? Like it doesn't have to be a thing. It doesn't have to be just the concierge service or just the social media management or just the thing or that. You have a great confidence now, and you've built that over time. You've worked your tail off to get to this place where saying yes to the opportunities that are in your life today, that's a different yes than it was 7 years ago, right? When you were putting the company together. Do you see your own progression over that period of time where you're like, I don't have to pigeonhole myself into the one thing. I can do all these things. Let's just do this.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think it's so cool to see, like, because I think I always had people calling me, you'll know the answer to this, or you'll have the resource for this. And and I was always a person who collected resources. And you're like, well, how would you make that work? Like as like how would you create like a passion, a job out of that? And I figured out a way to kind of do that, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
collecting resources, finding like what I think is the best thing. And also I think I always had it, but the networking group really like shined a light on how much and helping females. Like I just want to shine light onto females because I think it's not easy. It's not easy for any entrepreneur, but women have so much more. I don't want to say against. I've never felt like life was against me for being a woman. I really felt like that always
Right.
was an advantage. But there are things that are intrinsically, uphill battle. I mean, especially if you are trying to raise kids. And I mean, even just being single and like being like, it's just me. Where's my, where's my staff?
I know.
I'm like,
I want
I'm
staff
like,
again.
I was like a 1950s housewife, like I mean, the idea that men,
I had
there's,
one of those for about 7 years and I loved it.
a
Yeah.
traditional,
Yeah.
right? And it's like the idea that a traditional man goes to work and there's someone like assisting him with everything in the back. I'm like, that is a dream. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like,
Bring it
you think
on.
about what like a house manager costs, and the fact that women in that traditional role are just like, oh, she's just a housewife, but that role is like
Yeah.
$150,000, like easily, like if you're managing a whole household and
Yeah.
the
That's
whole
right.
thing, right? Because it's like you're the nanny, the chef, the housekeeper, the driver. I mean, each of those things is like a thing. So
But
I was like
I'm
one of those.
also hearing, and I also know this from my experience of you, that the longer and the more you are engaged in your own personal development, the more available you are to those messages that where you recognize that people keep saying, like people say about me, go to Jennifer, she's creative and she gets shit done. Like a new client came to me and said, when I was talking about finally writing the book that I've been thinking about for 7 years, my wife said, you have to talk to Jennifer. She's creative and she gets shit done. Like, but I believe you have to be in a position, and it doesn't take forever. But you have to be in a position like you are to be able to hear those things that people keep saying about you or coming to you for, right?
Well, you have to receive it and I think women have such imposter syndrome that
True story.
it's so heavy that you even hear it and you're like, oh, they're just being like they're just being nice. They don't really mean it. They're like they don't know the real me. They don't know that there's a shit show behind here. I mean, I just think that we
Mhm.
talk ourselves down. One of my favorite things to share is like you could put up a job listing and there could be 10 things on there and a woman could do 9 of them and won't apply because she doesn't do all 10, and a guy could do half of one and he's like
Right.
applying.
Bring it on.
He's like nailed it.
That's right.
So it's just like we as a whole, because we're kind of taught like don't shine too bright, don't take too much light, you know don't take up a lot of space. There
Mhm.
is like some of those messages, and so you see some women and myself, taking up space, like the guts to take up space and not have people be like, she's a lot, like
Yeah, yeah.
she's a bit much.
Yeah. And I recently put into my dating profile online, I'm a lot in all the best ways.
Oh,
You
I
know
love
what I mean?
that.
Like I'm a lot in all the best ways.
Hmm.
Because I think you're right that we do get that message of too much, not enough. How are you supposed to know? And when you put yourself in environments, and I love how dedicated you are to being in environments and creating environments and visiting environments where you can be that introspective, where you can spend that time with yourself and let those messages arise of like, what does Adrienne want? Separate from any other demand or any other expectation on somebody else's. This is what I want, right? And allowing yourself to have that support and then put that in action. And I know, I mean, from our conversations, it hasn't been like that for you every moment of every day. You have your own moments of doubt and pain, as we all do. What are your go-tos? Like our listeners, our viewers, they're thinking, look at this hot chick, like opportunity must come to her right and left. It must be so easy because you have
I
that in.
mean, I have, there are a lot of things that come easy to me and it's a blessing. So it's always like, um, hard to, hard to like always say what's the secret sauce, you know? And I don't say that to be, it's a confidence, not a cockiness, right? To
Yeah,
say
yeah.
like that it's just, I do have some innate talents, but I think filling my ears with positivity and good things has been the biggest thing. You know, I don't listen, like I have a lot of friends that listen to murder podcasts. Like I've never listened to a murder podcast. I just, you know, everything for me is just like, you know, positive female role
Mm,
models, like doing great things and, you know, staying, um, you know, my best self, you know, gets up early and goes for her walk, listening to her podcast or her Audible, you know, does her, you know, listens to her affirmations, you know, stays in that realm. And I know when those foundational habits are in place, I'm a better human and a better business owner and a better dog mom, everything. So
What do
it's
you
not
do on the
perfect.
what do you do on the days when you just don't want to?
I sleep.
There
I
you
sleep.
go.
And I let myself. I just, you know, there's times I think life is a marathon, clearly. And we're so lucky, but again, you know, I think Western life is like so many people like, oh, I don't nap, like it's a badge of honor. Like I don't nap. And it's like, okay, but would you like to? Or, you know, I mean,
I'm
it's just
about it
like,
now. I'm about it.
so I grew up in a real napping household. And so I love a nap. And it was just like, it was just very like built into
Yeah.
our life that, you know, there was, you know, like 4 to 5 o'clock, you know, or 3 to 5, like there was, the house was quiet, you know?
Yeah.
And, I think that that's a really powerful thing to just kind of, you know, check out for a little bit. The idea that we're just supposed to be go, 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 and production, production, production. I
Yeah.
watched a really powerful, um, again, back to like social media, like you see something, but it like totally changes your perspective. And there was these redwood trees and they filled them with, I want to say they filled them with, adrenaline to keep so that they would
Mhm.
never go dormant.
Yeah.
Right. So they would be in springtime all the time and they died. And
Yeah.
I thought, gosh, that's so like take that on as humans. Like there's seasons and we treat ourselves like we're supposed to be in eternal springtime all the
Yeah.
time. And I just
Yeah.
thought that was like, wow. Because because there always is like, oh, what's your goals? What are you shooting for? But like there's always this improvement, right? And in a general sense. And, you know, and corporations have it too. And I really saw it working for like restaurants. I worked for some corporate restaurants and they would work so hard on always increasing their numbers, but not in like working on who was coming through their door and like building that, you
Hmm.
know? And the way they approached everything was to cut, cut, cut instead of getting
Build,
people in and build what you have and make their
grow.
experience better.
Yeah.
Right. And instead of taking things away, like, oh, how can we give them a little less of this or a little less of that? Or we can, you know, use a cheaper milk or, you know, a cheaper butter or what, you know, it was like cutting, cutting, cutting. And I'm not saying that's not something to look at, but that
It's
realm,
not the
because
problem. It's not the core problem.
but where do you end up getting to if that's always the way you approach the problem? Cutting,
Yeah.
cutting, cutting, diminishing quality. Like, where
Yeah.
can we do it instead of like, how can we build quality in a sustainable way
Yeah.
and deliver at a, you know, so that we have that thing? And sometimes maybe one year you're not, but like that you're really refining and building that root system of the
Hmm.
business as opposed to toppling you know, getting all this top growth. I know
Yeah.
it's not, you know, popular in corporate America, but that's, you know, it just seems like a much richer way of building businesses.
Listen, I spent 20 years as an executive coach and I still do some of that work from time to time, but I say yes now only to those organizations that I know have the kind of culture that is that is dedicated, like literally invested in growing their people. I don't work.
Mm-hmm.
I said to this woman the other day, speaking of imposter syndrome, this high level executive, like smart, smart, doing amazing things, who's worried that she's not thought of very highly by the person that she reports to. And I said, let me give you some evidence straight up that's going to sound like it's about me, but it's not. I don't come cheap. Like, this is not, I don't work with problem children. I'm here because they see you as
An
somebody to
asset.
invest in and grow and support. And she was like, because she's also right in a vacuum. And I really want our listeners to think about like what the environments are. Like, you might, to our listeners, you might be in an environment that does not cultivate opportunity, that it's just hustle and produce and all that sort of thing. And I would say, do whatever you can to create that environment for yourself where you are, at work, at home, with your friends. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be easy. It is so, so worth it. So worth it. So what do you love about helping business owners say yes to their own opportunities?
I love the look on their eyes of just, oh, like where they start connecting the dots. And I love helping baby businesses and businesses that are kind of just at the very beginning, even though money might not be like there, but my goal is to serve at different levels. That way I can always come in at that like low, I don't want to say low, but beginner, like that starter level when, they're kind of figuring it out. Because I spent so much time trying to figure it out on my own. And then I finally cracked the code of like building brands and how to like create your offers and do all the things. And it's like, if I can take a year off of your journey or, and help you condense, I think one of the, I met this girl at the very beginning of Girl Bosses. She came in and bless her heart, she was living in Australia and she had some sort of, she was in a service-based business. I can't remember exactly what she did, but bless her heart, she had gone to some seven-figure business owner kind of summit. And they were talking about putting in these systems. And God bless America. I loved her. She just was doing all these things that she wasn't there for yet, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, because I think it gets confusing. Obviously, that we're being bombarded with, oh, this CRM, do you need this system? This, like all these things, right? I go, you just need to do the service and send the invoice, period. I don't care if you have a checking account, a business checking account. I don't care if you have an LLC. Like, we can put all that at another time. But right now, you need to get paid and feel good about getting paid and be messy and send those invoices and just do service and refine your skills and everything, and then get that confidence up and then start tweaking and everything. But the getting ready to get ready will kill you. And women want to make it perfect. They don't want to mess up. They're scared to fail. What if I fail? And I mean, no one's really paying attention like you think they are. And I can remember wanting to share like an offer years ago. And I was like, oh, I want to offer this. But I'm like, what if no one buys? And I was like, oh, you're right. Like, that doesn't matter.
That's right.
Like,
that's right.
It's just, okay. So you have like this extreme freedom. And I love that about small businesses. We don't have to go to a board of directors to get a font changed. We get to change the font because we woke up and we're like, you know what? I don't like that font anymore. I want a new one. Cool.
That's right.
That's right. And it's like, oh, I want new branding pictures. Awesome. You can have all that in place by tonight.
That's right.
It's, and I think that we make it so hard because we want to do it perfect. And, you don't need any Leibowitz to shoot your pictures. You don't need to have the $5,000 website. You don't need all these things. Start here and then pivot. And I do think that there is an aspect of, we look at brands that we admire and we are on their website and it's so gorgeous and whatever, but that wasn't their first website. Even if you could see their first website they started with, it wasn't that one. That wasn't their branding pictures originally. And, but it's a baby that you watch grow and develop and everything. And those old pictures are going to warm your heart later.
That's right. I saw my first headshot that I put on Facebook when I joined Facebook. Was it like 2009? That we were allowed in. And I remember going out to my backyard. I was living in Denver at the time. Married, had started my coaching business in 2003. had no branding photos whatsoever. I'm out in my backyard with my camera, maybe. I
It
didn't
had
have
to be your
like,
camera.
yeah, it had to be a camera. Something I knew about natural light, whatever. But anyway, that I left that picture in my profile pictures, because you can go in that album on Facebook
Uh-huh.
and it's grainy and whatever. But I'm like, look at me in my backyard being all like who I am. So, yes. What opportunities are ahead for you that you're going to say yes to that you're very excited about?
Oh, well, I love doing retreats. Like that's, for my personal, I like to assist with retreats, but I don't need to be the star of a retreat, but
Yeah.
I like to go on retreats. So Bali has been on my heart for a really long time. And, Courtney, is, I was, in Peru with Courtney and I was like, you know what? You're going to pick a retreat in Bali and that will make you go. Cause Bali has been on my heart for years. And it's like,
Sure, sure.
it's just, you aren't going to just end up in Bali by accident. So,
No, that's a trip.
so,
That's a
so
whole trip.
I was like, you know what? Like you're going to pick a retreat in Bali and then that's going to make you go. And like, I think that day, Courtney's like, "Oh, I'm booking Bali. Like, I'm putting the deposit down on a place in Bali." And I was like, "Perfect,"
There it is.
So,
There it
so
is.
that's, so that's a big one. It's so funny circling back on the wanting to be a digital nomad, and I finally did that. But then I also built a very successful dog watching business, and I love it with everything in me. But I've literally created an anchor for myself in this business.
Many feet. Yes,
Yeah,
many feet.
yes, many feet, like with fur
Yes.
called anchor. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, like so I'm redoing my backyard right now, which will make the house like definitely like very rentable. And I'm very excited about that. But it's like, oh, like so I mean, one part of me would just love to like rent the house out and just go all around. And it's not just the money about the dogs. I really truly love it. And
Oh, I know. Nobody loves
like
them more.
it's a real like I can't believe I get paid for watching dogs. I mean, sometimes I can because it's not easy, but sometimes I'm just like I can't believe that people trust me with their like precious little fluff balls, and then
Yeah,
I get paid well to do it. So, so it just makes me laugh that I'm like, well, you finally got the digital nomad and then created another job.
that's right.
So that TBD on how I create that. It's hard to. I had such a vision of creating an apprentice and like having somebody, and that is not it's a very complicated thing to pass on, and honestly not even something I want to, because it's just so much responsibility. And
Sure.
trust, having that much trust in somebody is
Yeah.
hard. It's really, really hard.
What I know about you is that whatever comes up that aligns with you and what you know about you and your opportunities, you'll know to say yes, because you're really just so
Thank,
brilliant that way. Well, I appreciate you.
thank
I
you.
appreciate you
I
so much
appreciate
for
you so much.
taking the time. Any last words for our listeners on putting themselves in a better place to say yes to opportunity?
I absolutely, I think tiny yeses can lead to big shifts and big changes. And it is so easy to get stuck doing the same thing, going to the same restaurants, going to the same this, the same that. And like, what could I go work at the Ritz-Carlton today in Sarasota? Like, could I like just shift it up a little bit, go
Yeah.
get a day pass at the Edition across for the pool, and like just do something different
Yeah.
and put yourself in a different environment, because it's so easy to get your coffee the same way, to go do
Mhm.
this the same way, and take yourself out, and just when you change your surroundings, you change your vibration, and then like things, like it just little things start to add up differently.
Yeah.
So being intentional, but also not thinking it needs to be, we don't need to blow the house up,
Right.
just look at, maybe get an Airbnb for a night, or find somebody that you
Mhm.
can do a house swap with or something, just shift your energy, because when you change what you see, things change, right? And so it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and it's an old adage, but it's like, oh yeah, like, and one of my favorite sayings by Marie Forleo is everything is figure outable. And
Yeah.
I think it's such a great thing to come back to whenever anything seems stressful. I'm like, everything's figure outable. I mean, most of the things we're dealing with are not have been figured out before. It's,
That's
you know,
right.
they're
Someone's
like,
done something. Yeah.
someone's done it. So it's like, okay. And especially like the magic of the internet, you think about like that we used to have to go to the library and use the Dewey Decimal System. And it's
Microfiche.
yeah,
Fiche.
totally. So it's just like, oh my gosh, like that everything you
Uh,
need really is right here,
yeah.
and that you can shake it up. I think also getting intentional about asking different people on like coffee dates and, you know, getting to know them. You know, if you're intrigued by somebody or like somebody, being like, hey, can we go get some coffee, and, you know, shake it up. You just, that's how connections are built, like, you know, one little piece at a time. And especially if you're in a stuck place, I think that's the way to get unstuck, is just to be around people that you feel like have a little bit of light, and just grab onto their light, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Well, I love you to pieces, my friend.
I
Thank you.
love you so much.
Thank
Thank you so
you
much.
for
My
being
pleasure.
here. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe and send comments, whatever uh, resonated for you out of this conversation. We would love to hear from you. We'll see you again soon.